Yep, that's it right there. Thank you so much.
Can I go?
Yes.
Hello everyone, my name is Holland Perryman and I'm an intern at the Pat Conroy Literary Center, and we are so excited to be introducing some lovely poets, and Millie will be doing that with me. Welcome back to the 6th annual Pat Conroy Literary Festival, which is made possible this year by the generous support of the Robert S. Handler Trust and the South Carolina Humanities Growth Grant. We're also grateful today for today's host venue, the Technical College of the Lowcountry, for making this space available to us. Our final session for the afternoon here at TCL features the winner and the 5 finalists for the prestigious Cary McCray Nickens Fellowship in Poetry, which is now presented jointly by the South Carolina Writers Association and the South Carolina Academy of Authors. This year's fellowship winner, Elizabeth Robin, decided the best way to honor the spirit of the award and its host organizations was to use the fellowship prize money to underwrite this afternoon's poetry reading, highlighting the talented finalists in collaboration with our Conroy Center. All of these poets have also been team teaching a series of writing workshops all day here at TCL. A retired high school teacher, Elizabeth Robin, is the author of the poetry collections Where Green Meets Blue, Silk Purses and Lemonade, and the forthcoming collection To My Dreamcatcher. A frequent collaborator with our Conroy Center, she is a member of the Island Writers Network, and she emcees an open mic and literary programs on Hilton Head Island. Her work has been featured in or is forthcoming in Ukweli, Poetry Society of South Carolina Yearbook 2021, COMET Buses, Catfish Stew 2021, Drunk Monkeys, Ripples, the Broadkill Review, I Am Not a Silent Poet, and the Blue Mountain Review.
Evelyn Berry is a non-binary writer, podcast host, and educator. They are the author of the novel Heathens and Liars of Lick Skillet County and the poetry chapbooks Glitter Husk and Buggery. They serve as poetry editor of Emer's Journal and write book reviews for Free State Review. They are the recipient of the Kekalak Poetry Award, Broad River Prize for Prose, Boom Chapbook Prize, and Susan Myers Summer Scholarship. They serve on the board of the Free Verse Poetry Festival and Poetry Society of South Carolina. They are the host of the creative writing podcast Contribute Your Verse, and their work has recently appeared in Beloit Poetry Journal, ANMLY, Be Stung, Raleigh Review, Taco Bell Quarterly, and elsewhere. They work as a museum educator in Aiken, South Carolina. Yvette R. Murray has been published in Fall Lines, the Pettigrew Review, Catfish Stew, Genesis Science Fiction Magazine, and has work forthcoming in Emer's Journal and Call and Response Journal. She is a 2020 Watering Hole Fellow and a 2019 Pushcart Prize nominee. Presently, she is writing her first collection of poetry, more science fiction short stories, in a children's book series. She is a member of the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, and a board member of the Poetry Society of South Carolina and the South Carolina Writers Association. Miss Murray lives in Charleston.
And Danielle Verwers writes and teaches in Columbia. She also plays the didgeridoo, but she says not very well, and collects library cards. She has studied at the University of Iowa, University of South Carolina, and Columbia College. Her poetry has appeared or is forthcoming in Eastern Iowa Review, Pettigrew Review, Emery's Journal, and elsewhere. Our session will be moderated by Ellen Malphrus, the writer-in-residence at the University of South Carolina Beaufort and the author of the novel Untying the Moon. Please welcome our poets.
Thank you, ladies. It's good to have you folks here. As you see on your program, the plan here was to have 6 poets joining us today, but we are down 2. Miho won't be able to join us, and Ann won't be able to join us. Ann is, we've only learned of this fairly lately. Miho, we knew in enough time that these poets were able to gather some of Miho's poems and will be reading in her stead. So before each of these poets begins, each of them will be sharing a piece from Miho for you.
From Excavation, today, fish only. A small sheet of paper fell out when she opens the book of poems by Kotaro Takamoto. It was an old Shinsei cigarette wrapper, a popular brand in the 1950s. Turning the wrapper over, she finds 6 poetry titles and their page number. Is it my mother's writing or my father's, she wonders. In this cryptic memo, she cannot tell them apart. There are 4 clues, 4 poems.
The first clue, living things. Quote, I didn't mean it. That's a childish thing to say. No careless words were spoken in my house. My mother, ex-editor, was the word police. My father, publisher, movie producer, was quiet at home. Not much truth was told either. It is not always possible to find the right words for what is true. My father once told me, you must try to understand your mother. Her boredom is rolled up into a sticky rice cake.
The second clue, howling tarot. Quote, she's gone over the waves balanced on a ball. Goodbye to you in your rancid town. It is not that I couldn't wait to get out of my town, but I left thinking I could always come back. The third clue, spiky epigram. Quote, riding on the train, exhibition of interesting faces like an aquarium of comedies and tragedies. My father liked to watch people. He would stand in a city corner and observe. I was surprised. I thought fathers took trains, sat at desks, and went to meetings. He asked for a small, private funeral. I suspect he did not mean it. Shouldn't a wrong phone number in his will invalidate his death?
The final clue, thinking of mother. Mother, who always believed in me. Her dignity in her last hours surprised me. When do we cease to depend on our parents? When do we come to terms with our mortality? The other day, my mother bought a new car without telling anybody. She turned 81, January 2013. I just want to say, in terms of the generosity of Miho Kinnas, I would not be standing here literally today if it were not for her telling me on the deadline day to enter the Nickens Fellowship contest. That is who she is. Thank you.
Thank you all. All right, we will begin individually with these poets with Danielle.
Bioluminescence. I wait for night to fall again and the sea to flash neon blue, red-tide algae bloom. Laser light shows offer tickets, paid admission. Though nature is generous, she offers no refunds, no money-back guarantees. She preys on my hope for phytoplankton to arrive before I fly east and is paid in small gasps of wonder. One bloom won't be enough to illuminate the waves. It takes a fortune, more than $1 million. It's not cheap for the glow to form, then unravel into white foam on the sand. And if Mother Nature is too tired tonight for another encore, perhaps it's for the best. Her display could be toxic, and after I lick salt spray from my lips, the temptation to plunge my body into liquid sapphire light may prove too strong to resist. The apothecary, with dim walls cool to the touch, her country home is lined with dry roots, bundled in string noose like a heretic. The backwoods apothecary pinches leaves, places them in her mortar. She must see the animal fears I wear like furs in the first autumn frost, covered in harsh minutiae, crystal cold, for she cracks a smile and turns her face into a deep-lying map. Pay no mind, she says, for our kind have always pressed the pestle with hard hands to grind stone upon unyielding stone, to bruise and break the leaf. Sounds knock the rock on bowl, a tap, a taste, all alchemist. She leans in as greens sublimate under pressure to surrender until poison turns to medicine. The art of flying kites in inclement weather. For Dustin. Remind me how to laugh again, head back, hair feral in the wind. How long has it been since we had a gust like this? I know you are the one holding tight to the string that grounds. You keep it from flying away. We forgot more storms than most endure, sudden flashes of unexpected light and flood. But this kite can't soar forever, so when it crashes toward Earth, a shooting star in a reckless dive, I will pick it up, hold it steady above our heads to block the rain if you will just promise me a kiss.
Thank you, Danielle. Ellen?
Hello, I'm Evelyn Berry. I'm also millennial, that's why I have an iPad. In class earlier today, we wrote a collaborative poem. I'm going to read that poem now. We were talking about where we get our sources of inspiration from, how poetry can be a superpower. This is the poem we wrote. When a tree sparks, words fly. The grief and lunacy and joy fog lips. Poetry is compact, time-efficient, impactful, a bevy of meaning in just a few words. Poems structure my ideas, help me organize emotions like a spreadsheet. Poetry offers perspectives for nature, relationships, philosophy. Nature breathes life and acceptance into my spirit. Nature gives the poet superpowers, just being in its presence. Poetry disconnects us from craziness with humor. A poem is a dispatch from the future, an artifact passed down from a braver version of myself. Other artists light me up in their crackling energy and make connections pop together in my body. In poems, I find my people, dead or alive. Here are some poems from a manuscript I'm sending out right now. The first poem is called Ecology of Queers. We find sanctuary in dangerous places, live atop one another in ruined houses, crowd into cheap apartments, walls crumbled and graffiti acneed. Just beyond the peeling wallpaper, termites practice glut. In the attic or basement, rot resides, teases cracks from the building's kudzu-smothered facade. Even when the summer becomes a sea of slurs, lashing serpent tongue against forgotten names, the music inside is louder. We push everyone against the wall, triple sit the sofas, stack the stairs with bodies. We collapse onto beds, spill cigarette ash on the floor, kindling ready to spark, or revelry fleeting. We build arcs from detritus and stay afloat just long enough to create something beautiful. We dance with new bodies, gender clumsy, break them in. We break down. We learn vocabulary to language ourselves back to life. We celebrate small survivals. Here, we exist. We come to taste sweat, to feel our feet compose some rhythm other than running. We come to sing poorly. We come to feel close to something still intact, unburned, something bound close as blood. We come to hear one another breathe just a little bit longer. So I wrote a lot of these poems in Charleston. I was doing a lot of archival work, and I came across a newspaper article about White Point Garden. You might know it as the Battery in Charleston, where all the cannons are. And in the 80s, it was a very common cruising spot. If you don't know what cruising is, it's a place, a practice of, having casual sex in public. This is a poem about that. White Point Garden, 1984. The seawall, no more than a stone scrim, thin as a condom or curtain, splitting life from whatever comes after. Air altered with pluff mud perfume, the men, some married, some too young to know to hide their winks, flaunt desire among cannon memorials. Cars cruise the park in ever closer circles. Men share stairs too long, beckon, disappear into bushes, into bathrooms, risk arrests for the thrill. Men once too loaded themselves into barrels and launched from the precipice of Niagara Falls. Their forms, descending specks, small as ticks, clung to the underside of carriage horses. They smashed against rocks, wood, blood, their bodies unrecognizable. And yet their names, collated on Wikipedia, listed and vaulted, these brazen dead men. Praise the reckless salt. Men tonguing shame from each other's necks in dark recesses, same way gravity displaces a storm from the sky. Praise brief lightning, inhabiting the body for the same time it takes for a wasp to learn a new crimson language. What a miracle we do not collect their names. Lay them in grass like dried flowers. Barrel jumpers, these men, touch junkies, bent on surviving the fall. No, some did not survive the summer. Their bodies, unrecognizable. Skin, gaunt tight against bone. Their blood everywhere. Nest. I spend the morning a magpie, gathering milk teeth with gold fillings. I keep swallowing glitter-crude trinkets and hope my guts will glimmer, but gem-cracked jewelry shines false, gorgeous as a beak, broken after biting too hard on a pearl mistaken for a seed. Little confetti castle, wadded with used tissue, decorated with glint baubles. Let me call even the glisten of glass sliver harbor. Call anywhere home, a nest that does not burn with me still inside. All right, this is my last poem. It's also called Ecology of Queers. This book has about 8 poems with the same title. You know what the word ecology means? It's a study of home. It's strange to call the South home, but it always has been. Don't be surprised. I'm a redneck wussy. Moonshine sloppy with a limp wrist. Town crier sobbing on the street corner. You'll get used to the lipstick. Same like the Scuppadine's flesh-sweet pulp. I'm here. Sure as roadkill. Sure as possum. Nice lick slurping blood ticks. I'm everywhere. Like a dandelion falling apart in the wind's embrace. Same like joy hates. Scowling at the sky. Haunting the family tree. Same as you. Born to this ecology. This bloodied patch of dirt. Go ahead. Spit me roadside. Like a boiled peanut shell sucked of salt. Crown me queen of the chitlin stripe. Don't be surprised the ground's so fertile. Young gay boy's been in those fields since the first sin, first garden delight, first Adam's apple taken in the mouth, first seed spilled. If you bury enough wild queers in the dirt, one's sure to sprout in your backyard. Thanks.
Thank you, Evelyn. Now we'll hear from Yvette.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Yvette Murray. You can feel free to follow me on Twitter at Miss Yvette Writes. We're going to start with the ode to the creases in my pants. You, meticulous detail of mine, garner admiring looks. Sit with me at the head of any table. You open doors for me like a southern gentleman. Your power never ending, you put fear in its place and lock it there. I feel particularly powerful when the creases in my pants are so sharp they cut the palms of my hands. Mountain ridges created by heat and spray starch on my blue linen slacks. That's that casket sharp. That's conquering a world that don't want you sharp. I get this from my mom. Although I, in sheer defiance, rebelled like the Russian citizenry in 1917. It was actually 1975, and that teen thing told me that I don't need no creases in my pants to make it. I can raise my fist and do anything I wanted, except plow through that wall in universities or bank offices trying to get mortgages if I look like yesterday's newspaper left on a park bench. She insisted, and like all good rebellions, mine came to an end, or I came to my senses, or I went back to my future. You see, generations have been wired in violence, tuned for this moment right here. She was one of the first to raise her fist by plowing through walls with creases and the magnificent intelligence, talent, and wit that are in our genome. Who am I to argue with that? The poem in which words don't deserve this. They have been around a long time, served us well. Why then do we use them like poisoned blue darts? Words have been so kind as to adapt. They want to stay relevant too, but we spit them into red plastic cups like Baca juice and leave them on the side of the road. They never harmed us, but we turn them inside out, pit them against each other, use our fangs to inject venom. The poor words can't be unheard. The ring after of their scent make folk mad. I hope they don't cry. I hope they don't die by suicide. I hope they don't vanish within. Then we will never again find the words. They might like that though. Scrub clean with different color hair. They can hold hands, stroll the streets, carry their shopping bags, or look for a bistro in peace. So if you guys hear something that you like or something that you think is funny, you can snap or clap or hoot, whatever suits you. We're having fun. Now I'm going to read a couple of food poems, because what Southern poet does not have food poems that are not really about food? 2-to-1 ratio. When all the Gullah folk meet at the stove, they speak about how to cook stone ground grits right. That 2-to-1 ratio. Instant is like the biblical abomination. That ratio reveals itself in refined spaces too, like cheer squads or boardrooms. It does not feed, not an exquisite dish to share with new neighbors. This 2-to-1 ratio, it comes dragging the cruel vestige of a past life so dark, so twisted, one can only speak of it in whispers. What's left? Shrimp and grits is made from what's left. Gullah people always have a few shrimp, some fatback, onion, and grits. Now she sits on menus with what they call tasso gravy, and they name her Fine. She been fine long time. Soup is the same. Carrots out the field, a piece of onion, stalk of celery, some rice, a chicken leg equals soup. But what do we do? What can we do with what's left from a life? A body bereft of breath, still eyes like fish in a sink, old photos, blood pooling in time. What can be made from that? Okay, here's a funny one. I was white. I was white before James Brown wrote that song, saying it so loud. Then the blackness sneaked in on me like the twilight fog off a Carolina swamp. Dizzying that fog is. I tried to hold on to the side of the mahogany dining room table that sits next to the mahogany hutch in the twice-used room in the lovely, lovely home on the hill, but I could not. The whole sea started to melt from the heat of empty rice plantations and cotton fields in my mirror, the long-away road, the filthy trailway station that filled my rear view. Dark mahogany faces that resemble now humming songs from funerals I did not attend. I turned myself inside out. Minstrel man. They are used to being entertained by us. Even old field hollers can move the moon. It's like something only we humans do, a dark and dandy deed at twilight. Even old field hollers can move the moon. Then we paint in colors and faces, a dark and dandy deed at twilight, walking in the dust of children's bones. Then we paint in colors and faces. We got all that jig and that jive. See, walking in the dust of children's bones could be ballet or bebop or both. We got all that jig and that jive. See, from Middle Passage to Carnegie Hall could be ballet or bebop or both. Brings satin and patent leather swan songs. From Middle Passage to Carnegie Hall, it's like something only we humans do. Bring satin and patent leather swan songs. They are used to being entertained by us. And this is the last one. Accents, after Denise Froman. My mama, too, has the sky in her mouth. She carries beautiful Hausa, rhythmic Igbo, and exquisite Yoruba, all smashed into one gumbo called Gullah. Gullah, the language of survival, in muck of rice fields and muck this republic. It flows with a rhythm so deep, deep, deep. It has to be eaten like all good gumbo should with cornbread. We know the beauty of this Creole is living on nothing, thriving in mist. Governed by the moon itself, Gullah pounds the shore like the tide, dragging grains of sand to build islands elsewhere. Hidden deep within our throats, language of rebellion, seen in the eyes, heard in the tilt of a chin. My mama brought it to me with the pride of bare feet. Now, poachers take her like ivory and put her on their trinkets to sell. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvette. And now we will hear from our prize winner, Elizabeth Robin.
I chose a theme of things that are inspiring. And this one I have to read. This is my son's favorite poem from Silk Purses and Lemonade. A simple pleasure. Today, I found that sock. The one that disappeared in the laundry months ago. The one I sifted and sorted and searched to recover. The one that was cushy and fuzzy and warm. The one that brought piggly wiggly joy, reunited with its lonely mate. The one who's been waiting alone in that dark, cold drawer. Abandoned twin, haunting the sock section, so patient, trusting her match would return someday, taunting my helplessness, my haphazard wardrobe control. And just when I'd abandoned all hope, there, just there, inside the form-fitting folds of last season's sheets, there, yes there, better than graduation and trophies and Christmas morning, euphoria, because today I found that sock. This one, my mother used to drag us to every great museum in the world to look at art, and I'm not sure this is what she was hoping would happen. Dear David, you caught my eye, very young, created an impossible standard of male beauty. The lean, long-backed proportions, the tapered, muscular thighs, the bulging, shapely calves, big, capable hands. But when I measured that pristine marble chest, assessed sculpted abs, that beautifully large, missing fig leaf, the serene, unassuming way you looked out upon the world, there, at age 8, you had me. I searched for years to find you, but the nose or calf or that burgeoning sex never quite fit the model. What perfect Renaissance man did Michelangelo find, and how? Surely my David had been replicated somewhere. Can flesh improve on marble? The discovery of tactile warmth, dimples and moles and birthmarks, tickle spots, years thinning or fattening into wrinkles and scars, a quiet ecstasy, David, while you remain coldly perfect, only needing occasional scrubbing from the smudges of Florentine air. At 500 some years old, your agelessness taunts how I've changed in far fewer years. I see you differently now, an ideal, somehow imperfect, endlessly on display, rigid, missing comfortable wear, the joy of familiarity, the reality of mortality. You do endure, dear David, offer idolatry to unending little girls, but flesh is so much better than marble. In an odd way, this was inspired by the reproductive habits of the praying mantis. Don't ask. Inside the moon. In supermoon season, passion rolls in werewolf moods, wild tides that expand in aqua blue mystique, contract, expose, jettison sins on rock beds. Supermoons enlarge until all of us howl. Souls bear secrets inside the moon. If I could read the water's surface in blood moonlight, I might understand how zigzags of still glassy bay mark passages, how small choppy parts like the rippling pile of a tweed jacket worn. Orion burns high in the winter sky. His belt lights a path to new love. A suitor hunts me. He sees romance. Sure we should kiss under that glow. Intoxicated, I remove his head like a mantis mid-coitus. Watch an egret inch along the lagoon circumference. Find sleep. A mother's spirit ghosts away, punished and punishing, as the mantis spins inside the silver light. A mist rises through the pines, obscures its shape, inhales its shine. The kiss lusters the beaver moon. A light arcs low, deserts early, arrives late, like that bad boyfriend who keeps popping up but never calls, darkens your door only to light you up and leave. A brightness wakes me, low and swollen she hangs. Awaiting the lover this night, the moon tilts, climbs high, spills love light into flickering stars. Will she kiss Venus again tonight, or ride astride Mars above wild? A harvest moon lights frozen stubble. The wind softens the stinging chimes. A quiet falls, the dead season. Winter arrives confused. Prophecies have changed. Forecasting Armageddon seems a dead-end job. Better to ignore the signs, work a psychic charm, act the magician who makes it disappear, stuff ears with white noise, patch eyes in Kodachrome, sleight of hand. It only hurts when we hope, and then only if we love. In clouds, a bird appears in silhouette, so high it dances with the clouds, milky and swirling. Its circles seem lazy, looping without purpose, at first concentric, laps, then figure eights, oval meanderings, higher and higher. I look away and lose sight, think, did it dive? Disappear inside a cloud? I never know. Even the cloud, substantial only minutes, dissolves. This bird, so distant, always traveling, I can't identify, but I know this journey. I have one more. I've never tried this one. It's in dialect. So I might mess up. We'll see. This one's going to be in an upcoming anthology called Ukweli. The voice of this poem is completely fictional. Everything mentioned in the poem is absolutely factual. What Mama says. Don't think I'm haunted, exactly. Not haunted, no. But I can't get one picture out of my mind. Truth means seeing clear and hear what I see. A mother shot, just watched her husband die. The bullet, what wounded her, killed the baby in her arms. Pieces of brains and blood staining her shoulder. She looking back, see her man and baby burn, her house collapsing on them. Sky bright past midnight with their flames, and she turned, rushing her three bleeding children across the street, push them under bushes where they crouch, untended by doctor or friend or food or drink for 3 days, while she wondered where her other 2 children be. Mama say the truth will set you free, but I was feeling trapped inside this truth. Amongst 13 men charged, my great-grandfather, big and bold on that list, indicted, tried, and acquitted on all charges, including killing the postmaster and his baby, the father and his baby. So I ain't feeling free, just full of questions. Did my mama know this story? My grandma? Of course they must have known, thinking Lake City history ripened atonement. The year my granddaughter born, we voted in 2011 to build a science museum in Ron McNair's name. And the year her mama graduated high school, whole town, in 2003, placed a historical marker on the empty South Church Street lot to tell the story of Frazier and Julia Baker's lynching. And you know, since 1986, Ron McNair Boulevard crosses South Church Street honoring him. Why? Atonement, maybe. Late as 1955, that's the year I was born, the Greater St. James AME Church set on the site of that 1898 fire and lynching, burned. I hear, because their preacher talking civil rights. Tain't a pretty history, but it iron. In 1950, Ron McNair, born here, becomes valedictorian, MIT graduate, laser specialist, Renaissance man, Challenger astronaut, and the town's favorite black son. All them what saw the fire must have heard the shots. All them Christians, where was they? We got 61 churches in Lake City. 61. Congregations maybe gone blind? Why didn't they petition for government pensions due? Get them Christian charity. Ain't Christian. The Lake City folk did it in 1898, and before and after, and ain't nobody served justice. Remember the Maine, but not Frazier Baker? And the stain spreads, don't it? Mama say the truth will set you free, but if and we can't see it, we won't never be free. I still can't get that picture out of my head, out of my dreams, haunts, as sure as that shooting happened. Does a sign, a museum, atone enough?
Thank you, Robin. Beautiful job, all of you. We have a few minutes left, so I'm going to ask our audience members if there's a question anyone might have. And while you're thinking, I'm going to ask you poets to consider a possible encore poem that you might like to read. I'll invite you to read if you would like to. But do we have a question? Yes, ma'am.
I work with gifted students, and I have one in the 8th grade who's just, a gifted, talented poet. She is entering a contest. I am trying to help her, but I am not a poet, and I don't want to take anything from her, because I just simply ask questions and say, you can do what you like with it. I want to, lift her up and make her, follow her creative passion. So what advice can you give to me so that I can help her? I asked a question, and she said, and then she was like, well, I don't like this poem, and that broke my heart. I thought I was helping, and I feel I don't want to hurt what she's doing. I'm sorry if my question doesn't sound right, but it really hurt my heart to think that maybe I was crushing her spirit, and I don't want to. So how can I help her in her creativity?
How to nourish her creativity. This is a teacher of a very gifted and talented student, 8th grader. And so we've got a couple of mics down there. If you guys want to grab a mic, and maybe each of you will take a little stab at this, perhaps some advice for this young writer, both in craft and attitude.
Okay.
Hello? Oh.
I was a teacher and often of gifted and talented students, and here's what I have to tell you. You're doing exactly the right thing. Ask questions, no answers, right? She has to find her voice, and she has to find what she wants to say. And you just keep asking questions, and she'll figure it out. Keep it open, keep it. That's what keeps people creative. You're doing. It sounds to me like you've got it nailed.
I know that she said that she didn't like the poem, and
We feel that way a lot.
yes, we do. But let her know that as the poet, we're the last person that knows what the poem is about. And she should follow it. If she feels really within her spirit that she doesn't like it, let her submit something else, because her energy, her positivity is going to be what's important to the whole process. If she feels content and happy with what she submitted, whatever happens, she'll be okay with it because she was content with it. And let her be the one that makes the choice.
I would also add to that, thank you for what you're doing. I think it's a phenomenal work that teachers are doing right now, and what you're contributing to the next generation of readers by the seeds that you're planting right now are just phenomenal. So thank you. Can we get a round of applause for the teachers? That being said, I would just add, it's important to normalize the process of writing, which means at times you're not happy with the work that you're doing. And so rather than giving up on an entire poem, I would suggest, well, let's try to identify what is it that's not working. And by helping her identify the parts of the poem that are not working, I think she'll see that she's able to identify the problem and solve the problem and get the poem to a place where she's happy. And I don't know if I speak for everybody here, but I think as poets, again, a poem is not a math test. So maybe you can get like 100% on your math test. But I think a lot of writers, the idea is to get it as right as you can. So perhaps, particularly for gifted children, often they struggle with anxiety and issues of perfectionism. So if you see that as a challenge that this student is trying to overcome, you might offer a suggestion, well, what can we do to get this poem to 80% right? You know, we can be happy with an 80%. So hopefully that's helpful. And again, thank you for the work you do.
Hey, I'll just say something real quick. Something to keep in mind, you know, this student you mentioned is preparing to submit to a contest. I think, you know, something that I'm sure you're already doing, but, you know, would just encourage you to do is make sure that, like, her interest continues on past the contest, so that it's not so much about the contest, but rather about a larger tapestry of thinking, oh, how can I live a poetic life? How can I build a poetic craft and a poetic habit of writing? Because a lot of things that she's going to learn about revision, about craft, are going to be building, and it's going to take a very long time. Often I find, like, when I work with young people, you know, they give me their poems and say, is this good? You know what I mean? And I'm like, well, you're really asking the wrong question. I think often it's like, well, the question we should be asking is, well, what else is possible? And to learn that, you know, you have to just continue reading poetry, learning about craft. There's a really great resource at the Academy of American Poets. It's just a glossary of poetic terms. There are things that you read, you're like, I have never heard of this, or, you know, this idea of a tricky or an enjambment. Getting to know some of those words can unlock some new little special powers, kind of, in your poetry. So, you know, just like making sure they have access to those resources and books of poetry are usually the best way to keep cultivating that kind of student.
Thank you. You are very welcome. Another question? Yes?
I had a question
Yes,
about Elizabeth, your poem that you read last. There's an actual event. Did it take place in Lake City, South Carolina? And are there 61 churches there? I want to know more factually about what that was about.
All of the items you mentioned are factual, yes.
There was a lynching, a double lynching.
It was the lynching that occurred. The gentleman who was the target had been a career teacher, and he was appointed in a gesture that the president wanted to install as part of the failed Reconstruction. In many places, install black postmasters, and in Lake City, that's what happened. They actually tried to do it several times, and then that night they were successful. And unfortunately, he was not the only person killed. And, you know, it was, yeah. And it's also accurate that there was no help for the family afterwards. They never got any of the charity that might have occurred. They were whisked off to Boston. What is his name? William Henry Garrison, the abolitionist, sponsored them, and they lived in Boston until all of her family died, and she finally moved back to a different town in South Carolina to live out her days.
For our at-home audience, the question was whether the events of that last poem that Robin read were true, and you probably surmised that from the answer. All right, we've got just a few minutes. Does anyone want to read a last, maybe brief poem, or you guys want to call it a day? Who's got something you might want to share? All right, thank you, Yvette.
This is the case of accomplice liability in 43 American states. One hand can lift up life as well as take. All that is needed is one to be as true as blue cannot be if all is all that they see. One hand can take a life is the asphalt rhyme. All that is needed is one to exist blackly in a metropolis, down home, down any street, anywhere, any. The hand of is one hand all to save a life, a heartbeat. All that is needed is 5 fingers. Oh, 5. A just hen, honest scales. Bring some light, hand him some hot tea, drink. All one hand can play is one song, is all that is needed is unbalanced forces, the take, kill, shoot of thee I die, right there. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvette. Anyone else? All right, Danielle.
This poem might be a little late. I only know the October night sky. After yellow on the western horizon deepens to navy, Mars rises red, a warpath in the east, and I finally find Orion's belt on a satin sky. Turns out it's been here all along, hanging on the outskirts of incessant city lights with Saturn and Jupiter somewhere in the mix. My tent is damp with rain under a blanket stitched by insect song. But if I can camp through autumn night, if I wait and wake on a feather pillow stuffed with bird warble, Venus will greet me at dawn near the smile of a crescent moon, and she will forgive my perpetual blunders, how my structures always collapse under low-pressure systems, and how, for the life of me, I cannot keep the firewood dry.
Shall we come on down the line, Evelyn? All right, thank you.
This poem is for my brothers. We've got wilderness stuck in our teeth, maws crammed with dead leaves, frog limbs, secret treasure maps scrawled on the underside of our tongues. We are brothers. We are feral scab eaters, sugar buzzed and drunk on each other's violent spit. We crash our bikes on purpose. We tread dirt paths with worn shoes until our souls unstitch, until our bodies scrape raw as red prayer. My brothers, we swallow grease abundant, air to everything that bleeds easy, all that when pinned beneath a magnifying lens will burn. Once, bats flooded the attic, erratic colony of night's music. At dusk, we hung a bucket of honey outside the window, watched as they evacuated the house like a mudslide rising backwards toward the sky. When the bucket filled with their screaming, when the still living wheeled above the roof, silent gliders, we raised guns, took aim.
Robin, bring us on home.
The sound of water. I listen at lower falls today, a rush of autumn leaves, a steady ocean surf, breaking over a distant reef, and I hear his voice in a whisper. At upper falls, he roars, a concerto in B-flat, soft breeze, and songbirds falling into harmony. A hissing mist rises above, percussion. What aria does he sing to me in his crystalline tenor? That voice shakes me still, a rumbling love song, just to me. At Fish Creek water laps, soft yet insistent, a constant humming, come to me. Sirens may lure and kill, but the danger is his song inside the water. Music calling me back, the pull as magnetic as the moon's plays everywhere.
Thank you, all of you. Beautiful poetry, beautifully read. Let's have a final hooray. Thank you all for coming, those of you who are in our audience, those of you who are in our at-home audience. We appreciate your continued support for the Pat Conroy Literary Center, Pat Conroy Literary Festival. Lots more events coming up. Stay tuned. We'll see you there. Bye-bye.